Welcome to Books, Dreams, and Financial Things, where we talk about marriage, blending our family, finances, and our dreams. We hope while sharing our journey, you can relate and learn with us and from us. Welcome back. I am your host, Renita.
And I am Jermaine.
And today we're going to talk about our experiences with our in-laws and how they have been important in our family, our blended family, our relationship, and all of that.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool, yeah. So, where do you want to start? Like at the beginning of what our thought process was and going into it and leading into it, or how do you want to do it?
Sure, I could talk about, or we could talk about a little bit, like what our expectations were. For myself, I was honestly a little bit nervous of how I would be received in your family just because, I'm your second wife and all that. So I feel like there's always, an expectation to see if I'm going to be similar or different. And then, you had other kids, so I just wasn't sure how they were going to accept me into their family. So I was very nervous about that.
Okay. And then for myself, just because I've always felt like, no matter who I meet, I can, butter them up or get them to like me or whatever the circumstance is. Plus, because I don't think I'm necessarily a bad guy, I wouldn't have an issue. But with your parents, to be honest with you, I was more nervous about your father because obviously I didn't know him. He's a 6'5" dude, like 280 pounds, a big old guy. The reality is, in the beginning or anytime I've ever met a woman and I met their parents, a lot of times the father wasn't in the situation. So this was new for me. Yeah. And so, I was a little nervous meeting your father, but your mom was pretty warm and open and so forth. And so was your dad as soon as I got to know him, but I was a little nervous in the beginning meeting him.
Right. I can't even remember when I met your family for the first time. Do you remember?
No.
I mean, I met your cousin fairly soon
early,
because you guys were roommates.
That's who we were living, right.
So I'm just, but I don't remember when I met like your grandma, your sister, your mom.
Yeah, I don't remember like an official like take you to meet my parents, or my grandmother in my case. I don't really remember that.
And I also don't remember when you met mine.
Yeah, I don't remember the first initial meet. No.
Right.
I mean, for those of you who are watching and those of you who are listening. Think about that. I wonder if you guys remember the first time you met your in-laws. Sometimes it's a big event type situation and sometimes it's not.
Right, because I can think of other situations where I feel like it was so much more formal and it was like, okay, you're coming here and we would meet, but I don't know why I don't remember that.
Huh, yeah.
I do remember when I met, specifically your grandma and your sister. You could definitely tell they were like, I gotta fill you out.
Right. Did you meet them at the same time or was it?
I don't think so. I just remember getting that vibe. Like, looking at, I guess how my facial expressions were. I just felt like they were like really studying me.
Right.
And I just felt like I had to be on my P's and Q's. Like, okay.
So what would you tell people who are listening? So if people are listening and they're it comes to the point, because obviously it's a serious relationship and they're about to meet in-laws, what would you, for a woman, what would you tell a woman to do? How would they dress?
Definitely dress a little bit more modest. I don't think you should be out there with your booty hanging out or like crop top or whatever. But also, I think it's important to be yourself so they can get to know who you are. Just be your genuine self. I think that I'm overall, a friendly person. I could be a little bit shy.
Right.
But, I just continue to be myself. And it's like, hopefully you like this person, because this is who I am. So it wasn't about trying to impress them per se, but just letting them see me for who I am.
You are. Yeah, and I would say the same thing. Being who you are, obviously trying to be comfortable in your skin, because and as comfortable as possible, because let's face it, meeting the in-laws, the first impression, everything matters, it seems like, because, obviously I feel like I've already won over, as a male, you'll feel like you've already won over your girlfriend's heart or your fiance, depending on the circumstance of when you meet the in-laws. And so when those in-laws come, you got to sort of kind of win them over to a certain extent. You want them to feel comfortable, especially not knowing the history. And a lot of times when dating, I don't even think I really asked about your history and who you dated at the time. But when it came to your in-laws, I remember I don't really remember meeting your mom and your dad any specific date, but I do remember when I met your brother. And that meant a lot to me just because he was your older brother. And I figure, you know, typically the older brothers are the guards over their younger sisters. And so
Right.
I remember that. But I would encourage you guys, yeah, just be yourself. Be who you are. Because at the end of the day, if you're putting on a front or you're trying to be something that you're not, they're going to find out.
And also, I mean, yeah, you want them to like you, of course, but remember that you're not, you know, obviously with them. So
Right.
it's also you're with who you're with.
Right.
You know, so of course it makes it easier if the in-laws like you.
Right.
But as long as that person likes you, I think that's the main focus. And so if you take that pressure off, like, well, you know, he likes me or she likes me, I'm just going to, and hopefully they like me as well. But not be so focused on that, because that can cause a lot of anxiety.
Yeah, I guess so. But sometimes those in-laws are pretty good at predicting whether or not the person is a good person.
Oh, for sure. Like your grandma. I mean, in our wedding video, she was like, I told you the third time I met her.
Right.
Which I thought was so funny.
Right.
So they definitely, yeah, that's why I think it's also important to be yourself, because then they can also judge your character faster and
Right.
see, you know, that you're about what you say you are or not, you know,
Right.
which is also important. My parents are just not the type, though, to tell me, oh, no, we're not feeling him. I've never had that until after the fact. And I'm
Right.
like, you should have let me, you know, no, but they kind of let me do my thing.
Huh.
So they wouldn't have said anything regardless. But
Okay, yeah, because best teacher's experience, so that makes a lot of sense. But and it's not in my situation, like with my grandmother. You know, with other people that I've dated in the past, she's been pretty correct on them, but she wouldn't say it like right off the bat. You know, she
Right.
would obviously let me date and do my thing, and then, you know, a lot of times hindsight's 20/20. Sometimes I would always think, you know, she would say, "Oh, I knew that person was no good after the relationship was
Right.
done," because you don't want to cause that riff-raff in between all of that type of stuff as well. And so, you know, that always makes a lot of sense in that aspect to listen to what they're saying. But, you know, obviously you have your own mind and you gotta, you know the person a little more.
Right. But for me, it was like, you know, your cousins were probably the easiest, just because I think just men in general, for the most part, except like if you're an older brother, like maybe my
Right.
brother. But they're just, I don't know, were the easiest to just like be around and feel like I wasn't being judged, I guess. They were just like really accepting from the jump. And then I feel like then your mom was always accepting and nice as well.
Right.
But then I think your sister probably took the longest.
Right.
And no, she wasn't mean at all. She was really nice. And something else is like how they were with Keone. I feel like they were really accepting of Keone. Like he would come around and they would always have whatever they had for the other kids for him
Right.
from the jump. Like your
Right.
sister is really good about that.
Right.
And so that was also, to me, really amazing how accepting they were to him, considering, you know, this is when we were even dating.
Right.
Before we were engaged and married and stuff. So that was also really cool.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, so within the blended family dynamics, it's very important, you know, if you have a kid, to see how the in-laws or, you know, the boyfriend or girlfriend's family reacts to the kid.
How do you think that my parents did with your two?
They were great. I mean, yeah, I mean, every time they came, they were included. Your mom's pretty good at making everybody included and individually making everyone feel a certain kind of way. You know, having a personal relationship with each and every one of them, having her little saying or her little thing that she does with every one of them, all the way up to, you know, my kids. Because the first time she met my kids was the first time that we brought them during the summer.
Right.
And yeah,
she still talks about, like, I was showing her a picture of them yesterday at the Wild Animal Park, and then JJ was really little, and he was like, she was like, oh, my baby.
Right.
Because she just thought he was, like, so cute and little, and kept on trying to pick him up.
Right.
He was, like, 4 and, like, put me down.
Right.
But, so, yeah, and I think that I know there was a few issues with my dad, but I think that he just is what he is, like, across the board. You're either going to love it or not.
Right.
And kind of strict and all that. But, yeah, I think that, you know, they did a good job, and your family did a good job with the kids.
So what would you say suppose for the people who are listening who may be dating and they have kids prior to whoever they're dating, what would be some signs, or what would you do? What would you have done if you noticed my side of the family didn't accept Keone? Or if what signs would let you know that?
Well, I mean, he was of an age where he could verbalize how he felt. So if he was like, oh, they're mean when I go over there, or because the way your grandmother's house is set up, it's like the kids are kind of separate from where we're at.
Right.
So if he would have came back and like I don't like it over there, or if he didn't want to go, every time we would go like, no, I don't want to go. And he seemed like scared of me, I would ask him. But of course I would bring it up to you. I'm not going to go confront your family. Like, excuse me, like that's crazy. Like if you have an issue with someone's family, it's, I think, important for you to go to that person first. And then they kind of facilitate the resolution between. And it would have been up to you to say, hey, it's important for me to include Keone in my life, so I'm hoping you do as well, and all that. But yeah.
Okay, and is there like a deal breaker? Is there something that happens, or do you revert back to what you said? Well, I'm with this person, so you would stop. And we're talking about Keone, just using him as an example. It's not what happened in our situation, as we stated before. But if you felt, for those people who may feel a certain kind of way about their kid being around their boyfriend or their girlfriend's family, if that was a situation, how would you handle that? So if Keone just didn't like, you would just talk to me.
But if it was ongoing and they were really mean, that would definitely be a deal breaker. If I'm dating somebody, that's why you date. If it wasn't meshing and it was like he was feeling away, then I would have to exit the relationship. I think. You were in the relationship. Yeah.
What if you love the person?
And if I've talked to you and I feel like there was no resolution, I'm not going to just continue to let my child feel left out or feel upset.
Okay.
Like I said,
but then
that's the whole point of dating. It's not concrete.
Right. Yeah, that's true. But what if the guy was really good and he just had bad family? He couldn't really control how his family was.
And that's when you have all this drama, because then I'm not going to want to go around your family. So you'd be going by yourself.
See, and that's a big key thing, because there are a lot of people out there who cannot get along with their in-laws, can't stand the things, and it just adds to the pressure. So the reality is, you're saying if the in-laws or if the boyfriend or girlfriend's family don't like the kid, that's probably what, within the dating parameters, probably a sure sign to let you know, like, hey, we're probably not going to work.
Right, because I'm so big on, family. I mean, I want to be around my family. I would want to be around my in-laws as well. So if we couldn't be, I would just be uncomfortable, and it would be like too much of a divide.
So what about if the in-laws don't like you in particular? Like, they just say they don't like you.
Yeah, they were just really ugly to me, and there was like no reason. Because I think that could happen a lot, especially when you're like a second wife or whatever. They might have loved that first wife, and you're just not meeting their expectations, and they could just be nasty. I wouldn't want to go around that. No one wants to go around somewhere where they're being mistreated.
Right.
So if it was like you were pushing me to go continuously and they're just being ugly and nasty, then I would question you.
Right.
And I wouldn't want to be with you if you're not. If you're like, no, well, that's my family, we're going to go around them, and they're just completely horrible.
Okay. So then what about if I was like, okay, well, you don't have to go around my family. What if I was a person who didn't really go around my family because I always felt like a certain way with regards to them? Would that be a deal breaker? Like, if you met a person, for those of you who are out there dating, and you met someone, because the reality is we don't get to choose our parents. Some people have great parents, some people have horrible parents. It is what it is, we're just born into that. Now, if you met someone who was good to you, but their family wasn't good to you, but they were okay with you not being around their family, and they didn't really go around their family, would that bother you? Or would that send red flags? Or how would you look at that?
I mean, I wouldn't like it, but it would be what it was. I guess we would just go around my family. I mean, even in our situation, my family is, the dynamic is a little bit different than yours.
Right.
We see my family a little bit more and all that.
We live right around the corner from
Well, yeah, but I think even before that, you even said, like, you didn't see them as frequently as I, even when you lived closer to them.
Right.
So it is different. Our dynamics are different. So you kind of just have to go with the lead of your partner.
Right.
So if you didn't get along with your family, I'm not going to push you all of a sudden to get along with them.
Right.
Now, it does make it tricky when you have children together. And I have seen this, like, in Facebook groups where, you know, the wives are like, you know, I can't stand my mother-in-law, and she's just so overbearing with my child, and she wants to keep my child, but she doesn't like me, and I'm so glad that's not our reality, because
Right.
that seems very stressful. But then that kind of changes things, because now you have these grandchildren or grandchild, and so that are connected to that family, and so it's like, well, you don't like me, but these are your grandchildren, you know. So what do? Does a dad just take them, or do they just not ever see the grandchild, or they have to be nice to me to see them? It's just like, that's just a lot
of stuff. The reality is, I would say once we had the twins, it brought my side of the family together even more. Mm-hmm. Would you say that, like, versus when it was just Keone and then when we had the twins?
I think so, because we would go over, you know, more frequently, and then it just kind of I feel like the twins just in general connected everyone. Yeah. It just made it more concrete, you know, because these are two that are related to everybody.
Right.
You know, so even if we're blended and not related and step this or step that, they brought us all together.
Right. And don't recommend people out there, if you're not getting along with the in-laws or the other sides of the family, to have a kid to try and make things better, because that could make things worse.
Right.
But in our situation, it was never really bad. We just wasn't as close, a tight-knit family. Mm-hmm. But having the twins actually, I would say, brought us even closer together. From the dynamic of my mom, who I wasn't raised by my mom, but my mom, my grandmother, even my uncles and so forth.
Oh yeah,
everyone, yeah. And so it just brought the whole family together in that dynamic, and so that's cool. So
to the point where, like, all of them have specific things that the twins look forward to. Like, they know Uncle Reynard's going to have candy.
Right.
They know Grandma's going to have some chips or crackers.
Right.
Or Gigi.
Right.
They know Grandma's going to have all the snacks.
Right.
Like, and they even remember, like, Auntie Tony going to SeaWorld,
Right.
which they were, like, 2 years old. I don't know how they remember that, but they have these memories, you know, that are very important to them, of course.
Right.
And, yeah,
so
that I'm thankful for.
So, what about... We never had to go through, like, counseling as far as our in-laws go, and that's what we're talking about and so forth. I don't know. I guess in-laws matter. A big deal.
Right.
What percentage would you say, out of 100%, how important is the in-laws?
I think once you're married, I mean, it's very important, just as important as your immediate family are. But when dating, it's less important, I think.
Right.
So, of course, you want to be liked and everything, but if you're just dating, I mean, kind of is what it is. However, when you're married and you start your family within that marriage, then they are, you know, they're your family. So they're your kids' family. So I think it's important to have good relationships and to make an effort to include all the in-laws, because I know that can be really tough, especially with us, where your family lives a little bit further away. We have to make an effort, you know, to make sure we have the kids around them so they know them.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And so then moving forward, with us in particular, obviously with regards to our in-laws, initially I remember, and I think I may have shared this before, I'm not sure, but with your mom and your dad, I remember you were saying, you know, you wanted to live next to them, you know, and initially before, I mean, outside of meeting them, I didn't really know them. And from previous relationships I've had in the past, the in-laws, a lot of times, they get in your business, right? They want to know everything that's happening. They're voicing their opinions. They're saying a lot of stuff. With you in particular, I would say that I lucked out, because your mom and your dad are just not like that at all. You know, if we have an issue, or we have a situation or a circumstance, they're not voicing their opinion on it. They're not saying nothing. And if she does, at least I don't hear it. You know, she may tell you something with regards to, you know, what you think is the best thing, but she stays out of our business. And this is a person who lives right around the corner from us.
Right.
And we've had some issues.
And there has been times, like, especially in the dating days, where I would be upset, and you would come around her, and she would just be, like, she wasn't upset. Like, she's that type. Like, that's on you, like, pretty much. You know, like, okay, that's y'all. You're upset, but they ain't got nothing to do with me. Because that was Jermaine. And sometimes I'd be getting from the other side. I'm like, didn't I just tell you? But she doesn't care. Like, she's just is very neutral. But my mom's always been like that. She's never been like a yes person. Like, yes, girl, you're always right. She's never been like that. She's very quick to tell me if I am in the wrong. And she's not one to hold she's not one to really hold grudge.
Right.
I mean, you have to do a lot of stuff to get on her bad side.
Yeah. Okay. And so then that makes a lot of sense and in that aspect. But it's very important. One of the things that I did, and I'm pretty sure I've shared this before, is this time around when dating, and nothing against anybody else who I dated in the past. We're not talking about anyone specifically, but I've dated in the past. What was important to me was in the person that I find, the woman that I find out now, because I came from such a broken situation, I was hoping that I would marry someone who came from a situation, and I'm not saying I was perfect, but at least that the parents were married for a while. And so that they can understand the dynamic of that. I think it's important in that aspect, not saying that that's the all be all, but if you can meet someone whose actually parents have been married 20, 30, 40 years, they have a lot of knowledge they can give you with regards to that. And I remember with your father, one of the things he used to always say is she's always right. You know, at the end of the day, she's right, deal with it. And, you know, she'll never steer you wrong if you have the right woman. And in the beginning, we bumped heads. I wasn't like that. And as time progressed, I'm learning that your father is definitely telling the truth.
Right. I mean, I think, yeah, when your parents are still together, it gives you an insight of what a relationship should be because you'll see the ups and the downs. Something that I appreciate about your family is just having a grandma, you know, our kids having a great grandma. I think that's amazing. Wow. Because, you know, my parents have passed, so the fact that your parents' mom is here, I think is great for them to see that, like, generations, you know, and something that a lot of kids don't get to experience. So that part I feel very lucky to have.
So going to what I said, from previous relationships that you've had, ones that have, you know, lasted a little longer or not as long, did they have their parents, the ones that last longer? I'm just curious because I this was something I thought, and yeah, I met one person who had that situation and it's been going pretty good so far, but I'm curious to know what it is that happened with you in the past.
Well, I've had, you know, relationships where the parents were together, probably more so than not.
Okay.
Or if they only had a mom, it's because their dad passed away.
Oh, okay.
But, you know, like my son's dad, I'm just putting him on blast, sorry. But he just had a single mom.
Okay.
And that definitely, you know, you could definitely see the differences.
Between, because I only had my grandmother. So when you say the differences, was there, or let me say, and not to compare me and him, but I only had my grandmother, someone you dated that only had their mom or their dad. Is there similarities within those people?
For sure. It's just like, I just think when you have a single mom, per se, and you're used to seeing them just by themselves or maybe different men, there's a message almost that it's okay to walk away when things are difficult or when things aren't right.
Right.
But when you see two parents and they go through things and you see that kind of transpire without even knowing all the business, but you know something happened, okay, they worked it out, they're still together, that kind of just changes your mindset. So when things are not good, your first notion isn't to just run away or walk away. It's like, okay, we're going to work it out. Whereas I think that sometimes when you're raised from a single parent, you don't have that as much.
So yeah, that's very, very true. You know, I remember seeing a quote a while back that said, you know, long marriages or, you know, prosperous marriages that last for a lot longer are basically two people who love each other a lot and never give up on each other. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like I said, like just seeing my parents growing up, like I mean, I think I've mentioned this before, but I never saw a lot of fighting, but I do remember maybe 2 times where something obviously happened. My mom was upset and then everything was fine. I don't know what it was. I probably should ask her at this point, but so I've just seen that. You know, I've seen my dad get mad at things at one point and then not care anymore. So they've obviously, like, he was really big on, he would feel away, I guess, when she would go out with her friends a lot. But then now it's like she can go on cruises. So it's like I see the dynamic of marriage change and things that might bother you at one stage no longer bother you at another. And so to me, that's just what it means to be married. It's like you're constantly changing, evolving, and that's important, I think, to have a successful long marriage.
Okay. And so, yeah, so I guess, you know, the reality is that's true. It's what you see. I mean, people become a product of their environment. And yes, it is true, you know, depending on the in-laws, for those of you who are dating, it doesn't hurt to find somebody whose parents have been together for a long time, because you can have issues within the in-laws. If the parents have been together for a long time, they don't love each other, sleep in separate rooms and all that type of thing as well. That can become toxic as well, because there comes a time where you have to walk away. And, you know, it depends on the individual, you know, how much you can take. I remember my grandmother saying to me, one time, and with regards to like drugs or people who do drugs, eventually you'll get tired. When you're tired of being sick and tired, you'll walk away. And so, you know, at the end of the day, that from an in-law standpoint or a parent standpoint, it made a lot of sense, because it was like they're of course they're judging and saying what you're doing is wrong, but they're not going to say it to you. At the end of the day, you as an individual have to make the decision to say, I'm done, and walk away.
Right.
Okay. So, thank you guys for listening. You guys, as always, the people who are listening internationally and all the different places there, we're so grateful for you guys listening. For those of you in the States who tune in, we are grateful for you doing that. We do have a YouTube channel that we have launched. There are some short videos. I'm going to start, actually on Wednesdays, I'm going to start putting up the full video of the actual podcast itself, so you can have the visual for those of you who want to see it, and actually put a face to the voices that you're hearing over on the audio side of things. You can put a face to it. So stay tuned, keep listening. We have some things down the pipeline. We always sort of kind of give you guys that, so stay tuned to be listening for that. We're excited about that. And as always, be great.
We'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.